Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me in the lab room exclusive. I had to do this. This topic was too juicy to pass me by. I couldn't let it go. And it's been the talk of the NFL in week number 8. We're into week 9 now, and we're still talking about this. And so I just had to put my 2 cents in. I've listened to a lot of different analysts weigh in on the subject. We're getting outside opinions now. So I've kind of taken a step back from the situation because when I first saw it, I had an initial reaction. I've come off of that initial reaction. I won't say that I've totally did a 180 on the reaction that I had, but it's slightly different after hearing different sides, hearing some of the audio from the actual incident itself, and then hearing other guys that were involved, and then hearing, from other guys that have been in situations like this. So, and look, I'm an athlete, I'm a competitor, I'm a guy that understands how this thing goes. When you're in the spirit of mode, I hate losing more so than anybody else, and everybody says that. No one likes losing. If you like losing, then you're a loser. And I can't even begin to wrap my brain around the fact that somebody would take losing lightly. If you're okay with losing, then you need to stop playing. There's nothing to do but win. That's all you do. When you play, like Herb Edwards said, you play to win the game. You play to win. And if winning isn't your objective, then you need to stop playing. And so I get where Dez Bryant is coming from. I hate losing. And if you got to get in guys' faces to try to get a win, by all means. But these meltdowns and what we saw from him in certain instances, detrimental to your team. It's not helping the cause. It's not helping to the big picture and the goal, the common goal for everybody, which is winning. Winning, duh. So let's break this thing down. I could not allow this issue to pass without chiming in with my 2 cents. So I want to break this thing down from a different perspective because this thing is multi-layered. There's so many different aspects of this Dez Bryant meltdown. And so in the middle of this big Texas star is probably one of the biggest stars on that football team, of course, outside of Tony Romo. Talking about Dez Bryant. So let's break this thing on down, shall we? And I want to look at it from different points of views. And I'm going to start with the obvious one, and that's being a disruptive force. When you look at the way this came off as you were watching the game, okay, end of the third quarter. Cowboys are struggling offensively. Dez Bryant, I don't think to this point even has a catch. If he does, it was a meager catch. I really think at this point this man didn't even have a catch yet. So I understand the frustration. And I thought Deion Sanders, and I'll talk about him a little bit later when I get to his category, but Deion said it best. I mean, they pacified him with the reverse. They gave him a reverse. It was out of nowhere. It's like I equated that reverse to you being out in the middle of nowhere. You're in the Midwest. You're in Wisconsin, and you're driving, and there's been nothing but cornfields for the last 75 miles. And then all of a sudden, there's a Dairy Queen's, and then nothing else for another 75 miles. Where the hell did that reverse come from? That was simply Jason Garrett's and Callahan and all of the offensive coordinators and all of the offensive guys' way of saying, hey, here's a token of our gratitude for you not making a scene right now. Take this reverse and shut up, essentially. And look, if I'm Dez Bryant, I'm offended by that. Don't give me this token reverse to shut me up. Throw me the football. Let me be a playmaker. So from that standpoint, I get it. But you can't be that way in this type of environment. You can't be getting it. Look, it was to the point where guys were trying to avoid him. He went and grabbed Derek Dooley, and he wanted no part of it. Okay, Derek was like, look, man, I got work to do. I got to figure out how we're going to get this thing jump-started. Let me go. Because he was grabbing Derek Dooley's arm. Derek's like, all right, man, let me go. I got stuff to do. He goes over to Wade Wilson. Wade doesn't want any part of this. Wade is trying to talk to Tony Romo. He's the quarterback coach. I got to help Tony out. Tony's struggling in this game. Well, look, we'll get you the ball, man. And so Wade wanted no part. And Dez was like, look, you're going to hear what I got to say. And so he was in Wade Wilson's face. He was in Jason Garrett's face. He was in Tony Romo's face. At some point, say what you got to say your piece, move on. Okay? No need in sticking around and making sure. I get in arguments with my mom and my sister all the time, or at least I used to. I don't anymore. I'm older now. I'm wiser. I know better. And I know there's no point because with some people, you can't get in an argument with them. You're not going to win. And the part that used to frustrate me with getting in arguments with my mom and my sisters that cut from the same cloth is that even when it's over, it's not over. Okay, you say what you got to say. They say what they have to say. You think it's over. You go into another room. Guess who's following behind you with more to say on the subject matter? Okay, you left that in the last room that you were in. You thought 30 seconds ago. You thought it was over with. They're not done. And even when they walk out of the room, they're still talking about it loud enough so you can hear it. So it's still irritating the hell out of you. That's what Dez Bryant was doing. Okay, everybody had already said what they needed to say. No, Dez might have came over to Tony and said, hey, I was open on this route. You know, they didn't give us the coverage that we thought they were going to give us. I was open, and you got to stay on me a little bit longer. And Tony might have said, hey, look, I stayed with you as long as I could. The pressure was coming. I came off of you. I saw Terrence open. I got him the football. That could have been the conversation. That could have been the extent of what was said. Okay, you said what you needed to say. I said what I needed to say. Move on. Now, Dez isn't done. I'm not done yet. I've got more to say. I've got more to get off my chest. I'm not finished. I've got more to say. That's when it becomes disruptive. Hey, look, I understand. You didn't get enough attempts in this game. You're looking across the field at a guy that you feel like you're either on the same par with or better than, and you came out and said, hey, I'm just as every bit as good as he is, if not better. He being Heavens to Megatron, which to me is ludicrous. There's nobody in the league even close. And maybe Larry Fitzgerald, and Larry still can't do the things that Calvin Johnson can do. So you're watching this guy dominate. Okay, you look out on the field and he's getting the football. He's being given the opportunity to make huge plays. Plays that you know that if you get the same opportunity to make, you'll make them. So I understand the frustration here. Don't be a disruptive force, though. Don't get in the guy's face. Don't get into Jason Garrett's face. Don't get into Tony Romo's face. Don't get into Wade Wilson's face. Don't get into Derek Dooley's face. That's not going to help anything. That's not going to solve any problem. Don't be a disruptive force. Hey, you can tell everybody, get all the troops fired and riled up if you want. Don't get in people's faces, though. That's not going to solve anything. That's number one. Let's move on to some different aspects, though, because a lot of people had different things to say on this particular topic. But my initial thought when I first saw this was he's being disruptive. Here he is acting like a straight you-know-what. And I said, come on, Dez. You can't do that. I was laughing because it was funny to me because this is not my problem. I'm not a Cowboys fan. This isn't my problem. So I get to laugh from afar. But this guy's a talent. And that's one thing I don't like to see wasted is talent. I don't want to see him fizzle out of the league, or I don't want to see him be suspended, or I don't want to see anything come of this where he's not playing football. Because ultimately, I want to see this man on the field because he's a rare talent in the National Football League. And like I said, I may not like the Cowboys. Hell, I hate the Cowboys. I'm a Redskins fan at my core. My blood pumps burgundy and gold. Okay? I'm a Redskins fan, but I love football first and foremost. I'm a football fan. I love the sport of football. Nothing makes me happier than to just sit down on my couch on a Sunday afternoon with the people I love watching the game that I love. And so I want to see guys like him playing this game. This guy's a talent. You can't coach what he has. You either have it or you don't. And this guy has an abundance of it. That thing we call talent. And so I want to see this man on the field on Sundays. So from that perspective, he has to be better. He can't be a disruptive force on the field. That's what I was thinking. You can't do that, Dez. You need to calm down. Now let's go to the prime time, the Deion Sanders perspective. Fire. And I watched Game Day Final. And Deion's take on this was that he saw fire and passion out of Dez Bryant that a lot of the Cowboys lack. And you know, it's been something that people have talked about for years with this team, that they lacked fire, and they lack the passion and the drive to get it done. And here it is, Dez Bryant is displaying all of these emotions, and he's getting beat up for it. And while I hear what Dion is saying, and I saw the fire, and I understand where it's coming from, while I get it. And then I think to back up Dion's claim, NFL Films, and even ESPN, if you watch Monday Night Football, they do the soundtracks on ESPN's halftime show. They gave you a little snippet of what he was saying on the sidelines. Hey, we're the best. We're the best at this, Tony. They can't stop us. Yada, yada, yada. So you got a sense of, you saw the gestures, but you didn't know the audio that went with the gestures. You got a little piece. You got a little snippet. And so you saw what he was saying, or you heard what he was saying, and you saw the fire. You understood where he was coming from with that. So that kind of backed up Prime's statement that, hey, everything he's doing, everything that you're seeing isn't all bad. This guy is very emotional, and he's got a lot of fire inside of him, and he's trying to get his teammates into this ball game because they're sleepwalking. And yeah, I understand it. And then we got some more audio. NFL Films released a little bit more. And it was a conversation between Tony Romo, offensive coordinator, and he was basically, or I believe it was Derek Dooley, and they were talking about, a coverage that he saw and how they had him bracketed off, and Tony was expecting one thing, Dez was expecting one thing, they got something else, and he was talking about coming back to the football and making the adjustment and how they were going to try to play it. And Tony was telling him, well, you got to be here so that I can see you and I can get you the football. You can't be there. That's where they are. You got to come here. And so they were working back and forth with the dialogue, and he was pretty calm. And so you see some different things and some different dynamics being unfolded. But what I caution everybody with that is, because I watched them break that down and then talk about it, that's not when he was going off, okay? That's a separate piece of audio. That's not when he was having his tirade, when he was in Jason Witten's face, when DeMarcus Ware, and I'm going to talk about DeMarcus Ware here in a little bit, DeMarcus Ware had to try to calm him down, and DeMarcus was really demonstrative with him. He got in his face, and DeMarcus Ware is a leader. He's a guy that, he shows emotion, but he's not a rah-rah guy. He's not a guy that's going to get in your face and grab your shoulder pads and jack you up and get in your face. It's not DeMarcus Ware's demeanor. He's going to go out on the field and lead by example, not lead by getting in your face. And so DeMarcus, seeing this situation really starting to become very volatile, he decided to step in and try to defuse the situation, which was necessary. And he grabbed Dez Bryant by the inside of his shoulder pads, and he said, look, man, and of course I don't know exactly what was said, but I'm pretty sure it was something to the effect of, look, man, it's 12 seconds left on the clock. We need you right now. Jason is trying to get your head in the game. You need to get your head out of your ass and get your head back in this football game. We need you. You need to cut it out right now. We need you, boy. And he pushed him away. And Dez calmed down after that, because that was the voice that he needed at that time. He needed somebody other than Jason Witten, who was probably yelling at him, look, man, we still got 12 seconds. This game is not over. Look at the scoreboard. We got time. We need your head in the game. And Dez at that time wasn't trying to hear it. So that's more of that fire that Dion was talking about. That's more of that fire that Prime was talking about. But you have to channel that into positive energy. That can't be something that becomes an argument between two or more teammates. That's taken away from the game. That's taken away from the focus. Now you're going back to that initial point. You're being disruptive. We can't have that. We can have all of these emotions here that I have on this board. This one can't be one of them. You can't be disruptive. And so I hear where Prime is coming from, but I don't totally agree with what Prime is saying, because, again, there's a time and a place and a way to go about lighting a fire under your teammates. And some of the ways that Dez decided to do it here, not conductive, not conducive to winning football games. So let's move on to the next one that I want to tackle. That's desire. And that was the angle that Michael Irvin took with this whole situation, was the desire. The desire to want to win. And again, much like Prime talking about the fire, that's been something that has been lacking in Big D for a while. The desire to want to be great, the desire to want the football, the desire to want to get it done in crucial situations. And again, much like Prime, I understand where Mike is coming from. And Playmaker was like, look, I'm not mad at him for this, because he wants the football. And honestly, I didn't think he got it enough in this game. For all of the offensive struggles the Cowboys had in this game, the one way to alleviate a lot of those struggles offensively is get the ball to guys that can make plays. We saw what he did on that touchdown catch. I mean, the first touchdown in the end zone, 2 defenders, ball not thrown in the best location. He catches it behind his neck, essentially. I mean, get the man the football. Get the man the football. And so the desire was there. It was definitely there. He wanted to be a bigger part of the offense. And a lot of people take that as being selfish. I don't see it as being selfish when you can help your football team. You know that you can help your football team. When Terrence Williams scored that touchdown, he was one of the first guys down there to congratulate him. He was happy. Guys that are selfish, if they're not doing the scoring, if they're not the reason their team wins, then they're upset. I looked at a Mike Wallace comment earlier in the season. Dolphins win the football game. Matter of fact, first game of the season. Dolphins win the game, and Mike Wallace is upset. And I said, you guys win the game? What the hell are you mad about? Yeah, maybe you had a catch for 7 yards. Maybe you had 2 catches for 22 yards. Maybe you didn't have the best performance. But your team won. Take it and move on. Say, all right, I'm going to be better next game. I'm going to be a bigger part of our win next week. But he came into the media bitching and complaining about how he didn't have a good game and, he wasn't satisfied. He was happy with the win, but he wasn't satisfied. Hey, I don't want to hear that after a win. Keep that to yourself. You may be a little disgruntled because you didn't get the football, you didn't participate in the win enough. Keep that to yourself. But, share and enjoy the team aspect of this whole thing. Winning comes first. Winning trumps individual stats. Dez understands that. He knows that. But he also knows that me getting the football, me doing my thing, and getting in the end zone and getting the football is going to help this team win. And that's what it's about. So I get where Playmaker is coming from with the desire aspect of things. But at the end of the day, again, I come back to my initial point that there is a way of going about it. And I feel like Dez Bryant crossed the line. Now, here's another view that I think this one is very interesting to me. Very, very interesting to me. And I want to dive into this a little bit. We're going to the emotional aspect of this. And there was no player more emotional when he played than Terrell Owens. And he made a very interesting comment. He said, this is a race thing. Now, I hate when people pull the race card. It's a card that I feel like is pulled out of the deck way too often. But hear him out. Before you just say, oh, that's T.O. talking nonsense and dismiss him, listen to what he had to say. He basically said, it's a race issue because we look at Dez Bryant and the way he's going off on the sidelines, and it's a tirade. He's being disruptive, and, he's acting out, and people are crucifying him. But when Tom Brady does it, and this is where the race thing comes in, Tom Brady being white, Dez Bryant being black, Tom Brady is lauded for it. He's being a leader. I would love to play with that guy. He's getting in guys' faces and motivating them. And so T.O. chose to use that spin and come off from that angle. And what I say to that is no. No. Because people crucified Tom Brady. Let's not forget, earlier in the season, and look, I get where T.O. is coming from again. I've sat and watched people praise Tom Brady for the way he acts. And sometimes I'm like, he's acting like a spoiled brat right now. Here's a guy that's used to winning, used to getting his way, used to having targets that he trusts. All of a sudden, he has no targets that he trusts. They're all young guys that he doesn't know, that he doesn't trust. They're not creating separation. They're not catching the football. They're not doing the things that he's accustomed to. And he's throwing a little temper tantrum on the sidelines, and guys are giving him credit for doing it. Look, there's a difference between being a leader and bitching and complaining about things not being the way you want it. And Tom Brady walks a fine line. But let's not forget, earlier in the season, Tom Brady was absolutely torn to shreds about his body language because he was really showing guys up. You know, he'd throw a pass, somebody drop it, and Tom was going and acting all crazy. And you knew his displeasure and what it was about and where it stemmed from. And you can't show your teammates up like that. And guys took him to task for that. So while I get where T.O. is coming from, and sure, you could try to pull that card. I mean, we've seen guys get away with that in the past. I don't want to go that far and say that this is a race thing. We've seen guys that were leaders do what Tom Brady has done and been praised for it that were black. We've seen guys not do it and do what he's doing. And T.O. can speak from experience because he was ripped to shreds his whole entire career from doing this. But he was more of a me guy. He was a guy that would tear a locker room apart from within. He was very destructive, was Terrell Owens. So I don't know if Dez Bryant is that. And Tony Romo said all the right things after the game. And he said that he's a great teammate, that being Dez Bryant. DeMarcus Ware said the same thing. Jason Witten said the same thing. These are all guys that have been in the locker room with him for multiple years, and they understand what Dez Bryant brings to the table, and they understand what he is as a teammate. So I don't think that he's a T.O. type of guy, a guy that's going to destroy a locker room from within. So emotionally, I get where T.O. is coming from, and I see the angle that he's trying to come from, but I can't agree with that. I can't allow you to pull the race card out here. Put that one back in the deck because Brady was torn to shreds earlier in the season for his body language, and he came out and said, hey, I got to be better. I can't do the things that I was doing because that's negatively impacting my football team. And so, yeah, Brady has been given credit for the way that he acts, but I think that was more along the lines of trying to get guys. And that's that line I'm talking about, that fine line you walk between, you know, throwing a temper tantrum and being a leader. And I think the times where Brady was given credit, he was being a leader. Now, look, some guys respond to that, and you got to know who you're dealing with. Some guys can take you getting in their face and telling them that they need to play better. You know, some guys respond to that. Other guys shut down. They don't respond to that well, and they get defensive, and they get in an argument with you. And so you just got to know who you're talking to. You got to know who you can and can't do that with. I think Tom Brady understands who he can and can't. And again, he's Tom Brady on that football team. This is Dez Bryant. He's not Tom Brady. Tom Brady is a well-respected member of the New England Patriots. No one questions Tom Brady when he says something as a player. Whether you've been there 5 years or you've been there 1 year and you're a rookie, you don't question Tom Brady because you haven't been there longer. I can assure you of that. You haven't been there longer than Tom Brady. You don't have the hardware that he has, so you can't question Tom Brady. If he tells you you ran the wrong route, guess what? You ran the wrong route even though you might have ran the right route. If Tom Brady tells you you're incorrect, then you're incorrect. In Dez Bryant's case, he hasn't been there the longest. He doesn't have that kind of tenure in Dallas. And while he's growing into a leadership role, he isn't a